According to National Geographic at nationalgeographic.com in 2013, since 1992, Antarctica has averaged a net loss of 65 million metric tons of ice per year because of the warming ocean. ITV, a British broadcasting network, first showed the interview between journalist Piers Morgan and President Donald Trump in January 2018, where Morgan asked the president whether or not he believed in climate change. Since NASA has been using satellites to view the Earth, scientists have noticed a decline in ice on the ice caps yearly. Even with this information, some still do not believe climate change exists. It's important to know that it's not just the media that puts out fake news, sometimes it's the person being interviewed as well. I've been researching this topic to find as much information as I can in the time allowed, and I've backed up my statements with evidence from reliable sources. Climate change is melting the ice caps at an alarming rate, so when an influential person gives misleading facts on this topic, it can make people who do not have much information on it believe what they are saying. First, I'll explain the news story I chose for this speech, then I'll discuss the reporting and coverage of the story, and finally, I'll explain the conclusions I reach in my fact-checking analysis. Now that I've established an introduction to the topic, I'll explain the news story about President Trump and his views on climate change. On January 26, 2018, British journalist Piers Morgan asked President Trump on his views on climate change. When Morgan asked Trump if he believed climate change existed, President Trump said, "There's a heating and there's a cooling. It used to be global warming. That wasn't working too well because it was getting too cold all over the place. The ice caps were going to melt, they were going to be gone by now, but now they're setting records, okay? They're at record level." According to Sam Lowe at friendsoftheearth.uk in January of 2017, Trump announced that the U.S. will pull out of the Paris Agreement, which aspires to stop the dangerous levels of climate change. According to John Schwartz in New York Times in 2018, the Paris Agreement does not allow anyone to withdraw before November 4th of 2020, so the U.S. is still in. Now that you're all aware of President Trump's views on climate change, here's how the story was covered on multiple news sources. On ITV.com, the article is called "What We Learned from Donald Trump's Interview with Piers Morgan on ITV." This source summarized the interview but did not refute any of the president's claims. On CNN.com, it was called "Trump's False Claims About the Polar Ice Caps," and it uses an expert's word to refute President Trump's claim. The Weather Channel on Weather.com said, "How did climate change and global warming turn into a misleading Trump talking point?" And it corrects the president and uses examples to refute his claims. This story was released as an interview, and it was developed because of the question that Morgan asked Trump. ITV, the news source that broke it, did not say there was any false information, so it was framed like it was true information, which made it misleading. There isn't as much coverage on this as other stories involving Trump, and there was more online coverage than TV. Now that I've spoken about the news sources that covered this story and how it was broken and framed, here are the conclusions I reached from the fact-checking analysis. While there was some misleading coverage on this news story, in this case, the false information was given in the interview itself, with President Trump saying the ice caps were at record level when they are far from that. According to John Greenberg at PolitiFact.com on January 29, 2018, researcher Julian Strove said Trump's claims were odd because the polar ice is at a record low in the Arctic and near record low in the Antarctic. And Professor Kent Moore said there is a variability from year to year, but the long-term trend is downward. According to Dan Marica and Brandon Miller at CNN, in January 2018, Dr. Michael Mann, a Penn State climate scientist, told CNN the Arctic is losing ice faster than originally predicted. He says, "We still expect an ice-free Arctic to occur in the summer in a matter of decades." On Weather.com in January 2018, Bob Henson refutes President Trump's claims as well. In his interview, President Trump said that it used to be called global warming, not climate change. However, according to Henson, scientists were concerned with what they called climatic change in 1970, and the term global warming was not used until about 1975, when scientist William Broker published a paper called "Climatic Change: Are We on the Brink of a Pronounced Global Warming?" Henson also refutes Trump's statements of the ice caps being at record levels. Michael Oppenheimer of Princeton University said, "Both the sheets of ice in Greenland and Antarctica are losing hundreds of billions of tons of ice per year." Henson next writes, "As of January 28th of 2018, the extent of the Arctic Sea was at its lowest level for the date in satellite records going back to 1978. Here's a graph that shows the trend of the ice caps in the Arctic and in the Antarctic. This is 1979, and there's where it is now in 2018. And this is, just to give you a visual, from 1879 to 2012. The most ice melted between 1995 and 2012, and it's 2018 now, which means there's even less ice there. When an influential figure gives false information on a complex and/or controversial topic, it can cause a misunderstanding of the said topic for people who are not experts in the field. In this speech, I first reviewed the interview and what false information President Trump gave about climate change. I then discussed the coverage of the news of the interview on several news sources and whether or not they refuted the president's claims. I finished off by explaining all the information I found in my fact-checking analysis. In 2013, National Geographic at nationalgeographic.com stated that if all the ice, both at the poles and mountaintops, melted, the sea level would raise by 216 feet. That means North America would look like this. Shorelines are all gone, Florida's gone, Alaska.